Listeners can listen to stories about hometown and family love on a YouTube channel, Darkness Prevails. Welcome back to Darkness Prevails. In today's broadcast, we invite you to meet her. She will send us a story titled The Village of the Dead. The story will be broadcast in 4 episodes. Listeners, please pay attention. And now we invite you to join us in the first episode of The Village of the Dead. Darkness Prevails that year. I was only 15 years old. After the year-end summary, my younger brother Hong and I immediately prepared to follow our parents back to our paternal hometown, also so that they could finish the work that had not been completed, returning to my hometown after many years away. My father was a bit worried. 8 years ago, my family had a wood workshop, although not very big, but compared to many other families, it was considered to be well off. After a while, disaster struck, my father went bankrupt, and the house had to be mortgaged. He blamed himself for going to the south to do business, while my mother and I stayed in the countryside. But after a near-death illness, my mother and I had to go take care of him and stay there. After Hong was born, our business suddenly became prosperous. My parents decided to go back to visit my grandparents. "Trong, is your house far away? Are there many toys there? Give me a bag." I didn't answer, but ordered him around. Hong flipped the shelf over to the closet, pulled a black plastic bag, and ran towards me. His mouth was smiling widely as if he was about to receive candy. Then he looked at me with his round eyes, still holding the red robot, his favorite toy. Well, in the countryside, there are many friends and many games for me to play with. Seeing his expectant expression, I replied. Hearing that, he jumped up and down, looking very happy. I don't know why, but every time he smiled, another smile vaguely appeared in my mind. This indescribable feeling has been there since my little brother was born. Until this year when he turned 5, that image still made me shiver, as if he wasn't my little brother at all. The next day, the whole family boarded the train back home at 1 p.m. I sat next to my father, finished my snack, yawned deeply, and fell asleep without realizing it. In my dream, I saw the back of a man standing by the riverbank, holding a bouquet of white roses in his hand. "Brother, look outside, it's so beautiful." I opened my eyes, ending the strange dream. Hong quickly opened the curtains I had pulled at noon. The city that the group passed through began to light up. The bright lights from the street lamps, the restaurants shining directly into the train doors, made me a little uncomfortable. But the scene before my eyes was still strangely beautiful. It reminded me of the weekends when my father drove me around Saigon on the 80-liter cup, eating cool ice cream, walking in the park. Everything gradually drifted away. Everything I had been attached to for nearly 10 years, the neighbors who were as familiar as blood relatives waiting here, all had to be left behind. I knew that there was nothing fun in the countryside, and I would become a lost person who was used to the pace of city life, and would certainly have difficulty integrating with my friends there. The train still rushed forward. I leaned my head against the window, letting myself drift along with my thoughts. Then I remembered the river in the middle of the village. Was that river related to the image I saw in my dream? I left my hometown when I was 5 years old. I don't remember much. 10 years have passed. I don't know if that river still exists or not. The last night on the train, it rained heavily. The street lights were also much dimmer. Only a few houses were still lit. The street lights were also sparse and angry. I pulled the thin blanket up to my neck. When had Hong fallen asleep? I fell into a dream like the previous afternoon. The scene was still the same, but this time I was standing closer, right behind a man, next to a small bamboo bridge. Out of curiosity, I reached out to pat the shoulder of the person in front of me. If I had to wade, I would wade into the river, and if I struck the gong 3 times, I would be punished. A woman's voice rang out, rushing straight into my mind. A strong wind blew, The tree swayed violently as if it was about to break. My body shook, colliding with a man. Everything suddenly became quiet. The river, the tree, and the man disappeared from sight. I was startled by what had just happened. Who was that man? And where did that voice come from? I quickly looked around, but saw only a vast white space. Suddenly, a strong hand with claws from behind grabbed my shoulder and pulled me back. Trung, what are you dreaming about that makes you frown like that? Dad was reading the newspaper. Next to him was a cup of coffee he had just bought on the train. I wiped my hands. Sweat was dripping. It was obviously cold last night. Why was I sweating so much now? Who was that man? What did that poem mean? I've always been a deep sleeper, rarely having nightmares. But ever since I got on the train, I've had this strange dream over and over again. These questions kept swirling in my head until the train reached the final station. It was now 5 p.m. My father was lugging around several gift bags, his cigarette half smoked. Hong and I were dragging a suitcase that contained only a few clothes, personal belongings, and his toys. My mother was carrying our books and 2 other gift bags. Do you guys like to take a taxi or a bus? My father asked, stubbing out his cigarette and throwing it into the trash can near the train station. At that time, my family was not as well off as it is now. Even though our family was poor, we always tried our best to let me go to school and grow up like my friends. In the evening, my grandfather would comb my mother's hair, and I would sit with my head on her leg to watch TV or listen to the radio. One day, I liked the bicycle of a girl who lived next door. The next day, my grandfather took me to choose one, even if it was just a used one. It would help me not have to walk a kilometer to school. And while mother was panting, having to take several breaths to finish her sentence. Hong jumped up and cheered as he headed for a taxi. Partly because there were too many things to carry, partly because of the unpredictable weather, and also because the bus couldn't get to the village. I didn't have the mind to care about last night's dream. Right now, I just wanted to get home quickly. 2 nights of sleeping on the train had left me lethargic and without any interest. Even though it was 5 p.m., the summer sun was still shining brightly, casting a golden glow over the city center. My grandparents' house was about an hour's walk from the station. The 3 of us stood there while my father hailed a taxi. Putting down the heavy luggage, he quickly ran towards the intersection where many drivers were stopping to drink water or smoke. I saw my father standing under a tree, tapping lightly on the car door. The driver stuck his head out to exchange a few words. A moment later, he happily returned, hurriedly picking up his things. Luckily, he met Gwen, Mr. Tu's son, who was driving a taxi. I hadn't seen him for so long that I didn't recognize him anymore. The 3 of us followed our father. Before that, he asked if all the cars were taking passengers. I thought we were going to take the bus. Weaving through the crowd, we were pulled by motorbike taxi drivers. But when they knew my family was taking a taxi, they turned around and gave us unfriendly looks. Trung is so big. Is he good at studying? Yes, he is okay, Uncle. I answered vaguely and didn't know what else to say. Maybe I used to play with Uncle Gwen, so he still remembered me. Tang Hong nestled in his mother's arms and finished the milk carton. Why don't you ask me? The boy jumped up. He stuck to the front seat where Uncle Gwen was sitting. Just looking at him, you could tell he looked like his father. His eyes widened in surprise. My mother smiled gently and stroked his soft hair. Everyone said the boy was tall and strong like his father, and I had a high nose like my grandfather. Many people advised my mother to ask for another daughter, but she just smiled and said, "These 2 are already hard to raise. How can we handle another one?" Oh, is our village still the same? Many companies have come to survey for the past few years, but we haven't seen any construction yet. The 2 men fell silent and then changed the subject to crops and other miscellaneous things. We arrived at the village entrance when it was already dusk. A few weak rays of sunlight penetrated the dark clouds in the distance and fell on the fields. On both sides of the road, several eucalyptus trees swayed in the wind. The scent of newly harvested rice wafted through the air, seeping into every corner of my memory, evoking a familiar feeling like a part of my flesh and blood. Suddenly, a strong wind blew, causing dust and straw to fly everywhere, even into the car. From afar, a dark storm rolled in. It seemed like it was about to rain heavily, possibly for days. I was restless. I drank too much bad water just now. Now my stomach is rumbling and uncomfortable. If I can't control myself, I will definitely lose all my dignity. Uncle Hune, oh, your eyes are so ugly. Father glared at me. Mother gently reminded me. If there was a hole nearby, I really wanted to jump in. Uncle Gwen burst out laughing, stopped the car to let me settle my mind, then continue the journey. On both sides of the road, the scenery passed by in a flash. I don't know if I'm being too sensitive, but this time I felt something was wrong. The car stopped in front of my grandfather's house, just as the rain started to fall. It was getting dark, and the already deserted village road was now even more desolate. My father paid the fare and hurriedly dragged his things into the middle of the yard. The dog barked loudly when it saw a stranger. My grandparents heard the noise and came out. They recognized our voices even though they hadn't seen us yet. They were overjoyed and quickly pulled the whole family in, got us towels, and poured warm water for us to wash our faces. I walked into the two-story house that my parents had sent money to Uncle Lone, my father's older brother, to rebuild for my grandparents. The house was brand new, the lights were bright, and there were plenty of furniture inside, both old and new. Surprisingly, my grandparents even had a TV, so this place wasn't as boring as I thought. My father choked up and said, his voice shaking, "I brought the kids to visit you." With that, he rushed into my grandmother's arms. She stroked my father's head, her skinny hand patting the back that I once thought was the strongest. Perhaps she understood how hard my father had worked and how many emotions he had carried in his heart over the years. Mom and I couldn't hold back our tears. Hong hugged his mother's legs tightly, his eyes wide open in bewilderment. Grandma took a small handkerchief from her pocket to wipe her tears and softly said, "You guys are miserable. Sit down." On her old face full of deep wrinkles, her eyes were dim, but her gentle smile still brought back so many beautiful memories. My parents sat across from them, and I was next to my grandfather. He patted me and asked me many things. His dry, old hands were still the same as ever, stroking my head every time I trotted towards him. I looked more closely at the house, which was not very big. On the table near the door was an old electric fan that had been with my grandparents for more than 10 years. Next to it was a slanted cabinet with frosted glass panels that could be pulled to both sides, filled with faded photos that were at least 10 years old. When I looked up, I suddenly saw 4 small yellow papers with strange red characters pasted on the 4 corners of the ceiling. After a while, she got up to prepare dinner. My mother also helped. The kitchen had an iron door leading to the garden. The door was warped from long-term use, and every time I touched it, it made a loud noise like a drum. Near the door latch was a round hole, so I peeked out. A tea was raining heavily. The gray curtain of water limited my vision. The banana trees in the garden swayed and swayed in the rain like bamboo. "What are you looking at so intently? Come eat, my child." My mother's voice startled me. She was holding a steaming tray of food. The aroma made my stomach growl. I quickly brought the bowl of soup from the stove and followed my mother. We gathered around the dinner table, enjoying the warm moment of reunion after many years apart. At that time, I had no idea that the rain. Tonight was the opening sign of a series of dark tragedies with no way out. After finishing the meal, my grandmother and mother cleaned up, while Hong and I went upstairs to pack our things. Perhaps this floor was not occupied yet, so as soon as I stepped on it, I could smell the paint. It was still raining. I couldn't open the window, so I had to try to get used to the air here. Hong quickly jumped onto the bed. The old bed creaked under his feet. From now on, this would be my brother and I's room. Grandpa had prepared a spacious study table for us, with enough space for our school bags and belongings. The laundry basket had just been repainted and still smelled of paint. Uncle Owen, the eldest son of the couple, built a house near the beginning of the village on the land left by his grandfather. It was said that his grandfather was a wealthy landowner and a revolutionary, so all his assets were donated to the state. He only kept a piece of land for his eldest uncle and this piece of land for his grandfather, located at the end of the village. Here are some pictures, Tron. Hong ran back, holding an old faded photo. In the photo was a group of about 20 people, including my third uncle. My third uncle died in a tunnel collapse 10 years ago. At that time, he and his brothers went up to make noodles, but unfortunately met with an accident. Until now, he still hasn't returned to his hometown because the level of machinery at that time was so backward that it was impossible to dig or install. Not long ago, my grandparents received a phone call from that year's factory. The investor wanted to rebuild, so they asked to dig up the old mine. They notified the relatives of those who went missing that year, hoping to find the chrysanthemums. My family and many others rushed up there to search, but in vain. No matter how much money they spent, they couldn't get anything back. Later, the photo and a wooden box were sent to my grandmother. In the box was also a small bell tied tightly with an old cloth string. More than 10 years have passed. Today, my father and my uncle decided to go there again, hoping to find my uncle's remains. My grandmother has never recovered from the pain of losing her son. My father was probably worried that my grandparents would be homeless, so he sent me and Hong back here. The sound of the window not being closed properly kept coming back as if someone was trying to open it. I was startled and turned to Hong, who was staring at the window frame. He was shaking his finger. Liney's voice was full of fear. "Don't open the door tonight. If he comes in, he will catch you." I didn't understand anything. But with the rain like this, I had no intention of opening the door. The two brothers got into the mosquito net and prepared to go to sleep. My mother slept with my grandmother, and my father slept with my grandfather. In the middle of the night, I woke up with a tickling sensation on my feet. It was pitch black. I rubbed my eyes, trying to look around, wondering if a mouse or a stray cat had snuck in. Just then, a soft sound was heard, counting 1212. The numbers repeated in cycles, mixed with the sound of metal clanking against each other. It was hard to tell where the sound was coming from when I was half asleep, but it was as if an invisible force was pulling me toward the door leading to the balcony. There was no moon or streetlights. I crept closer to the door. I peered into the small crack in the wooden door. Outside, the heavy rain drowned out the sound of the fan in the room. I saw a blurry figure sitting on the railing. There was an oil lamp on his side. Cold wind blew straight into my face, making me shiver. I thought to myself, is there a thief in the house? At that time, with the mindset of a 15-year-old boy, I could not confirm which world the thing out there belonged to. Suddenly a voice rang out, so cold that it made my back numb. The sound was distorted and unclear, sometimes interrupted like an old tape that had been scratched. "They killed me. I can't go home. I'm so cold, Trong, help me." As soon as the words were finished, the black shadow began to melt. The giant seemed to be burning and falling. The lights suddenly went out. Everything was plunged into darkness. Only the sound of pouring rain and leaves rustling in the wind remained. Someone had been teaching me for a long time, and I screamed. I felt my temples throbbing repeatedly. I couldn't believe it. Someone who had just been sitting there calmly had now fallen down as lightly as a dry branch, blending into the darkness. leaving no trace. Just a few minutes later, the whole family was in my room. My parents were worried. "Hey, Trump, what's going on that you're screaming in the middle of the night?" I told them everything. They didn't say anything. Only my mother doubtfully asked me if I was dreaming. I wasn't sure if what I had just witnessed was real or not, but it was absurd for me to be standing by the door in the middle of the night. Everyone ran around looking for it, but found nothing unusual except for the wildflowers arranged in a circle in the yard. Maybe the heavy rain had washed them here. I must have been dreaming. We have a squid. If there was a thief, it would have barked. My grandmother spoke up. Hearing that, I gradually became uncertain about what I had just seen. But to avoid the possibility that I would crawl to the balcony again in my sleep, my mother told me to go down to sleep with my grandfather, and Han would sleep with my grandmother. The first night here passed in confusion. The next morning, when I woke up, it was already past noon. Only me, my mother, and Hong were left in the house. It was drizzling outside, but the air was no longer uncomfortably humid. The summer morning after a heavy rain brought with it a coolness that made people feel more relaxed. I jumped up and got out of bed. Hong was sitting among a pile of toys and robot models, his eyes glued to the TV screen showing the weather forecast. It looks like the rain will last for a few more days. Where did Grandpa and Grandma go, Mom? Looking around and not seeing anyone else, I asked curiously. I picked up a bongee wrapped in banana leaves and took a bite. Grandpa and Grandma went to visit Uncle Gwen. He had an accident. Mom answered while patting Huang's back to coax him to eat breakfast. My younger brother was always a slow eater. My father tried to force him to eat, but he didn't improve. I paused. The piece of cake in my mouth suddenly became hard to swallow. What happened to him? Just last night, poor him. But you also remember later when it rained. Tell me not to run around. Mom did not forget to remind me. Tian told me the story of when I was little. I played with a leash and drowned. Because Mom knew that I was a fun-loving person, easily forgetting things. So whenever there was a chance, she would remind me to be careful around ponds, lakes, and streams. Where are you, Dad? I brought the second cake to my mouth. I don't know if it's because I'm back in the countryside or not, but everything tastes better than usual. Dad would help the village chief cut down trees. Oh, I just mentioned it and he's back. In the yard, a tall figure, his skin tanned by the sun, was struggling to take off his raincoat. His green pith helmet hung on the door hook. His shoulder was wet in a large area from standing outside for nearly 2 hours. Before he could tell the story, he poured a cup of tea. But when the water got cold, he told me to change the pot. This was also my father's way of avoiding letting me hear things I shouldn't know. But for a curious son, it made me even more curious. I took the teapot out to the garden to pour it out, then quietly put the lid back on the door and eavesdropped on the conversation. Tomorrow, if I had come home a little late yesterday, I would have been hit by a falling tree. Gwen told me that after taking me home, he drove past the woven tree. It was raining heavily and the wind was strong, and the newly planted eucalyptus tree was uprooted and fell straight onto the car, causing him to lose control and crash into the tree trunk. Tomorrow is a great blessing, only a broken leg, not life-threatening. My father took a sip of cold tea and then said in a deep voice, "Lately our village seems to be in a drought. Business is not going well. Is it possible that the dragon vein has been disturbed again?" My mother seemed to not like discussing spiritual matters, just silently avoiding them. After a while, after coaxing Hong, she said seriously, "Don't talk nonsense, I don't like it. If anything happens, I'll take you to the south right away, and your grandparents won't be coming back." I was a bit taken aback by my mother's reaction, as if she had witnessed something that had haunted her mind. My father realized he had misspoken and quickly reassured me, "Okay, I won't mention that anymore." But it's not just our family that's having trouble. Ever since the banyan tree temple appeared, there's been an ominous sign. As soon as my father finished speaking, my mother flicked her chin at me, signaling that I was eavesdropping. He immediately fell silent and stood up to change. I hurriedly put the bowl back on the tray. Hong suddenly jumped up, ran to hug me, and whispered, "My parents said our village was haunted." He covered his mouth and laughed as if he was telling a funny story, but I got goosebumps. His eyes were staring out into the yard, lifeless and hard to understand. "Don't talk nonsense. What do children know?" I scolded him lightly, but still felt a chill down my spine. Fear began to rise in my heart. My parents had never mentioned this to me. So why did Hong know? I felt it was unfair that only he heard it. I wanted to pull my hand away, but it held on tighter, its eyes wide, its gaze strange. "Don't open the door, or you'll die." I was stunned. This didn't sound like something a 5-year-old should say. Who did it learn from? Or who was it really? Through all the things that had happened in one day, there were things I couldn't explain with the mind of a 15-year-old. But right after that, Hong returned to his usual innocent self, running towards his mother to ask for food. His eyes had returned to normal, but the echo of that moment still made me uneasy. Why couldn't I open the door? What would happen if I opened it? That question kept lingering in my mind all morning. It was almost noon when my grandparents returned. My grandmother walked into the house, a conical hat hanging right next to the pith helmet. Grandpa went down to the kitchen to look for something. Gwen's family was in trouble, first his parents and now his. At this rate, all the young people in our village would leave the country. Damn it. I see everyone is still normal. The two women were deep in thought. Grandma didn't want to ask too much about the neighbors. She just knew what was going on. At this moment, Grandpa came in from the garden, holding 4 old bracelets of unknown material, some of which had faded. "Give it to the kids. You and your husband can wear it too. Wear it on your wrist or neck. Just carry it with you and it's fine." His voice was a bit urgent, as if he didn't wear it right away, it would be too late. Mom didn't say anything, quietly took one and put it around Huang's neck, then took the other 2 into the room and gave them to Dad. As for me, seeing the room, I felt uncomfortable. A boy wearing a bracelet would look strange and would be teased by his friends. Thinking so, I only wore it for a while and then secretly took it off and put it in my pocket when no one was looking. But that night I began to regret not listening to my grandfather. That night I still slept with my grandfather, but because I was too busy watching TV, I went to bed late. Grandpa had gone to bed, leaving only me and Hong sitting on the wooden chair. Strangely enough, he was awake with me today. While I was concentrating on the screen, I could feel his eyes staring at me. Through the mirror on the cabinet, I saw something strange in his eyes, both shy and scared. The main door was locked by Grandpa. I watched for a while and then decided to go to sleep. Partly because my eyes were tired, partly because Hong was making me uncomfortable. While reaching for the TV remote, I turned to him and said, "I want to sleep now. You go to bed with Grandma and Mom." I said but didn't look at him, just stood up to turn off the light. He was still looking in one direction, not at me, but at the main door. It wasn't until I came closer and tapped him on the shoulder that he turned around. His voice was innocent, but what he said made me shiver. "Brother, there are people out there. There are people upstairs too. There are a lot of people in our house." After he finished speaking, he clapped his hands together and grinned. He reflexively looked up. At first I thought he was talking. Nonsense, but then a dark shadow passed by the stairs and my heart stopped beating. Was I seeing things? But the whole family was sleeping downstairs. I could still hear her turning over and my father yawning. My parents weren't used to waking up at night. So who was it? He was being naughty again. Go to bed now. No, I'm calling Mom. I lost my patience, grabbed Huang's shoulder, and pulled him towards her bed. He struggled and clung to my hand, whining, "Oh, I'll stay with you." Suddenly, Lightning tore across the sky, and the house was plunged into darkness. Hong and I stood frozen in the middle of the room. It took a few seconds to get used to the darkness, but I still remembered my main task, leading him to bed, holding him tightly with one hand and groping in the empty space with the other. Another lightning flashed. At the same time, I clearly saw the window being blown open by the strong wind. And outside, the scene before my eyes made me gasp. In the dense darkness, red masses were rising up, twisting into a human-like shape. The cold wind swept straight at me. My eyes widened, my head pounding. The strange voice in my ear was mixed together chaotically like hundreds of voices piled on top of each other. There were so many whispers, so many stories, but I couldn't understand them. As I struggled to escape the strange sounds, the thing outside the window gradually became clear. It had a deformed, decomposed face with patchy, peeling skin. A nerve cord was still dangling from its neck. But while I was still dizzy with chaotic thoughts, it stretched out its festering arm, its dirty gray shirt torn, sweeping with each movement straight towards me. The slimy substance from its body dripped onto the window powder, touched the wires across the door, and boiled, making a creepy, sizzling sound. A foul smell rose up as strong as that of long-dead rats, and went straight to my nose, making me nauseous. But my whole body was stiff and I couldn't move. That shadow with long, loose hair tied tightly to the window, where I had smelled the smell of burnt fruit and rottenness before. The cloudy eyes kept flowing black streams. My legs started to give out. The extreme fear made my mouth unable to speak. I just stood there motionless, despite the hand that was using its strength as if it wanted to split my head in two. Just when it seemed like everything was about to end, a sudden flash of light appeared from behind. The warm and gentle light enveloped me, easing the terrifying pressure. That shadow, I could now confirm, was an evil spirit screaming in pain. From the deep eye sockets, swarms of insects poured out, writhing in destruction, and gradually dissolved into a red mass. Even though it had disappeared, the image of the ghost with its eyes sewn shut, the layers of flesh so broken that they stuck together, still haunted me. I sat down on the ground, my back drenched in cold sweat, my hands shaking unconsciously as if they had just been soaked in ice water. Something was stirring behind me. Hong was sitting with his back to me. "Hong, do you see anything?" I stuttered for a long time before I could get the question out. "I don't see anything." He spoke while attentively playing with the red robot in his hand. Suddenly, the dark room was lit again. The oil lamp was turned on. When did Grandpa stand right next to me? His eyes narrowed as he looked at his two grandchildren, who were still making noise in the house in the middle of the night. "You two haven't gone to bed yet. He's taking you away now." As soon as he finished speaking, I immediately jumped up. Trying to hide my panic, I crawled straight into bed, pulling the blanket over me. Grandpa picked up Hong and put him in Grandma's bed. At this point, the whole family was starting to show signs of waking up. I couldn't sleep all night, and as soon as I closed my eyes and turned my back to the window, that horrifying image would appear clearly again. Not only that, the strange sounds kept ringing in my ears. The voices overlapped and murmured, sometimes angry, sometimes sorrowful. Just when I was at a loss for what to do, a voice suddenly rang out, pulling me out of my panic. "Aren't you wearing your bracelet?" I suddenly remembered the bracelet he gave me this morning and quickly put my hand in my pocket, worried that I had dropped it somewhere. But luckily, it was still in my pocket. I immediately took it out and put it around my neck. Strangely enough, as soon as I touched it, the strange sounds immediately disappeared. The feeling of being controlled completely disappeared, and my mind felt much lighter. Even though I was able to fall asleep, my heart was still pounding. How could I tell everyone about it without people thinking I was hallucinating? After that night when I thought I would lose my life, I had a few days of peace with music. The next morning, sky had cleared up and the air was fresher. But that same day, something happened in my house, an event that would later be recalled as a lesson from the previous generation to the next. Oh no, what was going on? My grandfather usually got up early to go to the fields, but as soon as he opened the door, he suddenly stopped and looked down at the ground. 2 rows of blood-red footprints stretched from the main door to the window. When had it been opened? If I hadn't experienced the horror the night before, I might have thought it was a cruel joke. But now I knew it wasn't just a joke. What's wrong? What's wrong, Dad? My father hurriedly ran out, and I followed behind. When he saw the scene before him, my father's expression immediately changed. The jagged footprints and deep scratches on the door made my scalp numb just by looking at them. The scratches were most obvious on the main door, right below the octagonal mirror hanging above. I had heard my grandfather say that this mirror protected the house and prevented evil spirits from entering, so on the 1st and 15th of every month, he used white wine to clean it thoroughly. But the scariest thing was that besides the footprints that had turned dark black, there were still some new ones, proving that it had not only come once but had returned. It could not have entered through the main door, so it had become so crazy. Grandfather pressed his hand against the door and sighed. Wong Sunta could not hold it back, but it seemed that I had to ask the teacher to come back. Suddenly the room around my neck became hot. Suddenly the garbage was so hot that I could no longer keep it under my shirt. I had to pull it out. Seeing this, my grandfather took out a small red bag from his pocket. A pure and pleasant scent spread from inside. He wrapped the stone face in that small bag and turned back to instruct. Only open it when it is truly dangerous. It is best not to touch it from now on. Grandpa walked into the house, picked up the phone, and called someone. At this time, the whole family was awake. All gathered in the living room, the atmosphere was heavy. Everyone looked worried. Occasionally, I caught my mother secretly looking over, intending to say something, but then stopped. Hong still sat silently playing by himself. Since he was little, he was obedient, but sometimes I felt that this little brother was not quite normal. It was not like other children of the same age. The tension lasted for an hour until a guest appeared. Seeing him, everyone felt like they had found a life buoy in the midst of the storm. Only then did I gradually realize that what had happened to my family was no different from the ghost stories that my friends often told when they gathered. The only difference was that this time it really existed. Mr. Truong, you're coming tomorrow. Grandpa hurriedly ran out into the yard, happily welcoming the man of his age into the house. It seemed that Mr. Truong had made a hasty trip. His hair was still messy, and his body was covered in straw. Without delay, he carried a large bag of things, and at a glance, one could guess that he would be staying here for a shorter time. Although he was over 60, Mr. Truong was still tall, strong, and had strong bones. As soon as he reached the door, where the red footprints were most clearly visible, he suddenly cried out in regret. "Why are you wasting your money like that? Do you know how precious it is?" My grandfather smiled broadly, clearly regretting it, then led Mr. Truong inside to the altar of my grandfather. The schoolmaster lit the incense 3 times. I was a little surprised. Up until now, only relatives or those with special relationships lit incense for my grandfather. So who was this schoolmaster? Putting the incense in the incense bowl, he prayed that his student had failed in his studies, that his teacher had not yet mastered his knowledge, and that he could not solve this problem for his family. However, his student promised to do his best so that his teacher's lifelong efforts in cultivating himself would not be in vain. With that, he slowly looked up the stairs, then across the 4 corners of the ceiling. From his backpack, he took out 4 rectangular pieces of paper and gave them to my father. I immediately recognized them as the kind of gold talismans I had seen before. At that time, they were quite new, but now they were burned to a crisp. All 4 pieces were like that. Seeing my curious gaze, Mr. Truong spoke. This is a talisman made from bamboo stems and roots, used to protect a newly built house. As for what it protects against, you can probably guess. He smiled lightly, then walked towards the main door and around to the back garden. After a long while, he returned, clutching a handful of sand-like soil in his hand. This is Hong Tam, though, also known as Gulin soil, taken from 5 sacred places and used to ward off evil spirits, but it seems that it has lost its effect now. It turned out that Mr. Truong was my grandfather's student. He used to be a shaman, but this was the first time I heard him talk about it. The medicine he used to give me when I was little was also passed down by my grandfather, so I wasn't too surprised. Perhaps my survival last night had something to do with that profession. However, my grandfather soon realized that my grandfather had no affinity for the Dharma, so he passed on his profession to another person, Mr. Truong. It is said that he also considered another person that year, but in the end he still chose Mr. Truong as his successor. At that time, the profession of a shaman was highly respected, but my grandfather was never arrogant or domineering. He was always willing to help families with spiritual problems, regardless of their wealth. Gradually, people referred to him more as a shaman instead of a rich landlord. I only heard these things from my grandmother because my seat was quite far from the school principal. As you can see, I'm afraid something big will happen soon. My grandfather recounted the strange things he had witnessed. The headmaster leisurely brought the cup of tea to his mouth, took a sip, and then let out a satisfied sigh. It seemed that everything was within his expectations. There's no need to wait. Something was already happening at home. As he spoke, he glanced at me, his eyes briefly glancing at Hong. I suddenly felt guilty. My back felt cold, as if an electric current had run through it. Sweat began to appear on my forehead, watching my nephews carefully as they entered. If you are not careful, you will be easily influenced. I will stay here for a few days to see how things go, and then decide how to handle it. If anyone asks, just tell them I am a distant relative visiting. He spread his hands and looked up at the sky. His silver eyebrows furrowed slightly, his expression becoming unpredictable. Well, we have to be careful in this weather. We don't know where we will get into trouble. The silver man who fell into the pit could not take it with him. I do not understand that house at the beginning of the village, but perhaps my grandparents were different. In the past, my village was called the gold mine because after 3 steps, you could step on a gold mine. The ancients said that this gold had an owner, and touching it would bring disaster. It was originally buried by the Chinese to pave the way for future generations. A few people had dug it up, but most of the tombs had remained untouched for hundreds of years. The villagers rumored that more than 20 people had died of a strange disease a decade ago, and the common point was that they had touched ancient tombs. After that, everyone was scared and did not dare to act rashly. But there were still people who secretly looked at the seemingly ownerless gold. He meant the house at the beginning of the village. Oh, you must be wrong. That family does business properly. No one would go so far as to rob graves. I hope I am wrong, but that place has a lot of dark energy. You should remind them to be careful. Grandpa nodded. Everyone in the family has been paying attention to that house for a long time. It must be admitted that Uncle Gwyn is very rich. Combined with the wealth left by his parents, life is even more prosperous. His job was stable, but that was why the rumors started. He left bloody footprints here. Everyone must be careful. Come here, Trungmak. I turned the bed and stood up to look closely at the schoolmaster, who seemed kind but also stern. He observed me for a moment and then put his hand on my head. Immediately, the memories of last night came flooding back. Fear surged like a tidal wave. My body tensed. My legs felt ready to run away at any moment. I looked at my mother and saw her nod reassuringly. Taking a breath, I took a step forward. The old man held my head in his arms. I closed my eyes tightly, my heart pounding. After a while, he let go and said, "I told you to be careful with what I gave you." But the boy had opened almost all of it. What he meant was that Grandpa asked again, his voice full of doubt. Perhaps Mr. Truong was a bit angry, so he didn't answer that vague question. Grandma took advantage of everyone's busyness to pull him aside, her voice urgent. "Do you have any solution for the third son's matter? My husband has been worried about this for a long time. My husband and I were very miserable." She burst into tears. Her hair had almost turned white. All her life, she had hoped to see her youngest son, who had been gone for so many years. For the past 10 years, she had not had a single day of peaceful sleep. Every time she heard that someone who had an accident was brought back to their hometown, she would keep her hope alive. I felt so sorry for my grandparents, just hoping that one day there would be some news to ease their pain, so that my third uncle could return and reunite with his family. "It's almost here, don't worry. I promise to help. I will help until the end." Mr. Truong's voice was full of determination, but if he had agreed earlier, would they have had to wait so long? "Thank you. I really thank you." My grandmother happily wiped away her tears. Because of what happened this morning, my mother didn't have time to cook breakfast, so she had to give me money to buy snacks. But unfortunately, I had to take Hong with me. Although I didn't like it, I knew that if I didn't take him with me, my mother wouldn't let me go. I took Hong out of the gate, not forgetting to tell him not to get in my way. It had been 2 days since I'd been back home, but today was the first time I could step outside. My grandparents' house was at the end of the village. I planned to go to the village entrance to buy food for me and Hong. By the way, I stopped by to say hello to Aunt Twee, the wife of Uncle Owen. Uncle Owen was away on a business trip for a few days. This was her last trip before retiring to spend time searching for Uncle Ba's sea bones. My village made a living by farming and fishing. A small river snaked like a snake, dividing the village in two, with a fishing house on the other side. Normally, a location like this would have split the village into two, but the local government had tried many times but failed. I heard that the river god Ha-Ba did not allow it. Uncle Gwen's house was near my eldest uncle's house, and in the yard there were a few Women's Association members visiting. At the same time, Aunt Twee came out of the house, her eyes looking as if she was searching for something. "Hello, Uncle." "Oh, is that Trump? Come in." Even though I hadn't seen him for a long time, I still recognized him. He hadn't changed much. My uncle loved my siblings, and I very much. When we were still in the South, he often sent things to our parents. During the first difficult days away from home, he also helped me a lot. Uncle Twee is a teacher at the high school, the school I am about to attend. His family has 2 children, but one is married and the other has moved out to live with his wife. So the original intention was to build a 1-story house for the couple. But Mr. Truong advised the 2 of them to build a 2nd floor. Although the village entrance should be prosperous, the sunlight was very weak, mostly blocked by the banyan tree in front of the village. Seeing that my uncle was about to go back into the house, I refused. "No, Uncle. This morning, my mother gave me money to go out for breakfast. Now I will take my younger brother out for breakfast and then go home. Are you going to go to Uncle Gwen's house?" "No, the work there is finished. Children, don't go across this river too much. It's been raining and windy these days, so I haven't been able to visit your grandparents' house to ask about your parents." Then my uncle said he would take us to the tea shop at the beginning of the village. I stood near the gate of my Uncle Gwen's house waiting for him, when suddenly I saw a column of black gas rising from the corner of the garden where there were some treetops. In the countryside, people often burn trash, so I didn't pay much attention. When he got to the coffee shop, Hong and I greeted Aunt Twee and quickly bought bread and milk. The old lady selling coffee asked curiously, "Are you guys from somewhere else? You look so strange. Whose children are you?" "Yes, we are the grandchildren of Mr. Hui from the end of the village. Our family is in the South. It's summer break, so my parents let us go back to the countryside to play. The old lady chewed beetle and fanned herself. When I was a kid, I used to play with beetle, and I still remember the bitter and sour taste that went straight to my brain. Oh, Hui's nephew. Your grandfather should call me in. I'm from my mother's side. Your parents are doing well. They built a big house. I smiled wryly, not sure if she was complimenting or mocking me. Hello, comrades, still not done? The sudden voice behind me startled me. Lately, I am extremely sensitive to sounds, especially when someone calls my name. Hello, Grandpa. Have you had breakfast? Hong said loudly. He quickly moved to one side, almost pushing me off the chair. What is Mr. Truong doing here that Hong has been so friendly with strangers? Mr. Truong sat down next to Hong, reached out to ask the old lady for a cup of tea, and asked her how long she had been selling here. The tea shop was located right under an old banyan tree. On the trunk there was a large, deep hole. Inside there was a large amount of water passing through the round hole like a honeycomb. I heard that the tree had been damaged before. The tree was struck by lightning and burned, and it was thought that it would not survive, but after a few months it grew better than before. The villagers believed that the tree had a spirit, so they built a small shrine right at the base of the tree. I have been selling here for 20 years, since the time when there was a rumor that the village had gold. At that time, anyone who wanted to know what was going on could just sit here for half a day, and they would know. The old lady swallowed and continued. Other users may not know, but everyone in this village knows about strange deaths. Like a few families in the village suddenly died, both old and young. People kept saying it was a punishment from the gods, but when they examined them, they said it was due to illness. In fact, they all drowned. It's strange what kind of illness would make people who are still alive and smiling go looking for death. After that, many people came to this banyan tree. Fruits, wine, and meat were plentiful. The old lady smacked her lips in admiration while Mr. Truong nodded, took out a cigarette from his pocket, and asked the old lady for a match. So since then, no one has been lurking around this gold mine anymore. I listened silently and now asked, also to confirm the questions I had since returning home. I was a stranger, so it was normal to be curious. Besides, who would suspect a child of intending to rob a grave? There are still those. Like the other day when I came home late selling water, I heard a lot of people gather behind me, like they were smashing something, and they were doing it very discreetly. I was paying attention, so I heard it. But hey, don't tell anyone. I think I saw them standing at the gate of Gwen's house. As soon as the old lady finished speaking, she looked out warily. Suddenly, a group of strange young men from Mr. Gwen's house ran past. She felt guilty and quickly turned away. It's not good to gossip behind other people's backs. Mr. Truong didn't say anything, just listened quietly. Before we left, the old lady pointed out the place where people used to dig for gold. Mr. Truong said he would come over in a few days to find out, but for now he had to go home and settle some family matters first. We said goodbye to her and then went back the same way. Hong was chewing on bread as he walked, his chubby cheeks making me want to take a bite. A gentle wind blew by, carrying the scent of harvested rice, extremely pleasant. But before I could fully enjoy it, Mr. Truong raised his hand to stop me. In front of Uncle Gwen's house, the group of people still hadn't returned home yet. Mr. Truong looked intently at the corner of the garden, then furtively observed the surroundings like a thief. Stand here and wait for him. He entered Mr. Gwen's house and quickly sneaked out into the garden. The trees obscured his movements. If I hadn't paid attention, I wouldn't have seen him. A moment later, he returned with his clothes covered in dirt, holding an incense stick and a package carefully tied with red thread. He held the bag tightly, his face clearly pensive. When we got home, it was almost noon, Mr. Trong immediately went into the house and blocked me from closing all the doors. I didn't understand what was going on, but still obediently followed. He carefully untied each red thread button. When the last button was open, I was shocked. Inside was a centipede as big as 2 adult fingers, lying motionless. Suddenly the door opened. Light flooded in, making the whole house light up in an instant. It was Grandpa returning from his field visit. When he saw the light, the centipede immediately curled up into a painful, destructive circle. From its body emanated a black aura that reeked of blood, mixed with another smell that I couldn't remember. The Black Block village was exactly like what I saw this morning. Hong suddenly smiled. Grandpa was horrified, quickly pulled Mr. Trong back, his voice full of worry. Why did he bring this kind of poisonous centipede home? He calmly said that there was someone in this village raising poisonous insects that were harmful to people. He told everyone to be careful, not to eat it carelessly. Mr. Trong squatted down and used a stick to poke the centipede back and forth to see if there was anything unusual. So someone harmed Uncle Gwyn? Grandpa wasn't sure. Trong stayed home to help Grandpa in a few days. If he could, he would come back and deal with it. If not, he would ask someone for help. While everyone was still examining the centipede, a scream was heard from outside the gate. Grandpa and I ran out to see, while Mr. Truong and Hong found a place out of the wind to tend the fire and burn the centipede. After finishing the work, I ran to the gate. My grandfather opened the gate and stepped out. A person tried to run back but was held back by my grandfather. The village banyan tree was on fire. I don't know where the fire started. The old woman selling water was hit on the head by a falling branch and died instantly. I felt my hands shaking as I listened. Why had all these strange things happened since I came back? Was the old woman's death related to me? Was it because my family returned that this land was not peaceful? This kind of thing had never happened in the village before. I looked at Mr. Truong as if searching for an answer, but the only response was a helpless look. He shook his head and ran after the villagers to the village entrance. I followed closely behind, leaving my grandfather and the prince behind. The fire flared up fiercely, burning from the top down to the roots. A strange pile of fruit. No one told anyone. Each basin of water was quickly brought up. Some people even pumped water from the river, but the fire did not go out. Amidst the chaos and the faint cries of the old woman's relatives, the body lay there, a white cloth covering her face. I saw the old woman selling water under the shade of a banyan tree. The water accidentally splashed over her. Her body was almost transparent, swaying her broom along with a noisy crowd. Then she turned her head back. I was stunned. The top of her head was dented, blood and hair stuck to her scalp. Her face was pale, blood flowed from her nose and mouth like a broken water bottle. She looked at me, her eyes made me tremble. She moved her lips, although I was very scared. I still tried to squeeze into the crowd. I had to know what she said. The fire had gone out. Only a few sparks of fire crackled on the dry leaves. Mrs. Thew's voice was weak, unclear, but I still heard it. Then a cold laugh echoed from afar. Another cold voice interrupted. Floating on the calm river surface down here, the old lady's figure gradually faded away like the evening clouds about to disappear into the impermanent world. Her life ended just like that. She didn't have time to say anything. The wind blew up, blowing her hat into the river. I instinctively reached out and ran a bit, but Mr. Truong stopped me. By then I had already stepped 1 foot close to the river's edge. What are you doing? What did you see? I saw my uncle's hat fall into the river and was about to pick it up and return it to his family. The schoolmaster half believed and half doubted, then looked in the direction I pointed. I knew what I had just seen, and I was sure that Mr. Truong saw it too. Look closely, there was no hat. I looked again, and there was nothing. Where the hat fell, There was now only a bunch of banyan leaves rolled into a circle. A thump like a stone being thrown into the water was just soft enough for me and the schoolmaster to hear. Not far from me, under the green water, a black round streak like a human being was parting the water, dodging through the razor-sharp grass and then disappearing. Be careful when playing on the river. If someone calls your name, don't look back. He patted my head, his voice low. Do adults like to play riddles like this? Then he took out from his pocket a small piece of yellow paper about the size of 2 fingers, tiptoed, grabbed the black fruited banyan branch right above my head, and stuck the talisman on it. This is an immortality talisman. This talisman is only used in emergencies, because it is not used when the caster is in a state of cultivation, but when there is no way back. That is, the situation is very dangerous. You keep it here. When you need to use it, remember to come here and get it. Did you see your old lady just now? Yes, I saw her in a lot of pain. The relative said, I hesitated. This was too unbelievable. I thought the spirit only appeared late at night to scare people, but I did nothing. But what they showed me scared me to death. What did she say? She said, run away. I didn't understand, but at that time she was very scary, as if she was angry with me. Mr. Truong patted my shoulder to comfort me. What's wrong with my son? Is he about to die? Grandma said that when people are about to die, they will see the other world and see the dead. Is that true? I cried. Since Hong was born, this was the second time I had such a crisis. I was scared. A 15-year-old boy who had not yet realized his dream of university now had to face these strange things. I was afraid that I would become different or go crazy because of being harassed by invisible spirits all night long. Mr. Truong smiled kindly, his eyes still affectionate, not scolding me even though I was sobbing like a child. You are just more special than other children. The world you see and feel is the fate that they have been waiting for a long time. Not everyone can see it, nor can they understand its source. Most of them will be scared, and some will even turn around and harm those souls. You know, I am not that kind of person, right? He pulled me to sit down on the flower bed near the tea shop. Now the crowd had dispersed. Only a few curious people were standing around to gossip. Ever since he arrived in his village, he had known that there was something wrong with the banyan tree, but he had never expected someone to be so cruel. Perhaps the old lady had broken one of the taboos, causing the spirit of this banyan tree to be angry. He explained that the feeling of guilt and self-reproach made his hand tremble unconsciously. He could not be blamed. He came here because my grandparents asked him to. But I still don't know if he came because of my third uncle or because of some other secret that the village has kept for many years. It seems like everyone is hiding it. I'm a wife, but I'm still scared. Why do I have to go through all this? It's okay. Everyone will protect me. Only I can do this. I was angry at myself for not knowing where I went wrong to see these horrible things. A 15-year-old boy was not ready for such a big responsibility. According to him, the hat I saw then was created by the power of a spirit that had lived in the river for many years. It could pull people into the water and drown them to death. It knew I could see the dead, so it wanted me to take its place so it could quickly reincarnate as a human. If Mr. Truong had not stopped me in time, I would have become that thing in the river. Suddenly, dark clouds gathered, thunder rumbled, lightning tore across the sky, foretelling an impending rain. From the hollow of the banyan tree, a stream of blood-red water flowed out with the rain. The people cleaning up the mess were in a panic. The banyan tree was the guardian spirit of the village gate. Now that this had happened, no one could predict whether it would be a good or bad omen. Some people said that the old woman had died unjustly, and that God was angry. Mr. Truong stared at the tree hole. If they knew what he had been doing all these years, they would probably die of anger. Who would want to harm everyone like that? I quickly returned home with Mr. Troll. Ever since the dark clouds came, my heart had been restless. There was always someone's voice in my ear urging me to return quickly. I felt that something was wrong. Just now, Hong had not run after me. As soon as I reached the gate, I ran into the yard and called Hong, but he did not answer. I called him again. Just then, my grandfather ran in from the garden. He was covered in dirt, and he was holding a stick as if he was about to hit someone. What happened next? I didn't have time to explain before running into the house. On the cold ground was a small figure, still holding the red robot, lying motionless. I ran over in fear and patted it a few times, but it showed no signs of waking up. Now my mind can't think of anything. I blame myself for running out without looking after my brother. Hong is not that old. If anything happens to him, I will regret it for the rest of my life. Let me see. Mr. True sat down next to him, turned him over, and lifted his shirt. He observed him for a while, then took out a talisman and stuck it on his back. He mumbled something that I couldn't hear clearly. It's okay. Let the boy sleep for a while and he'll wake up." My grandfather couldn't sit still either. He had just turned around for a while, but his grandson was already lying in the middle of the house. I heard a noise like someone had thrown something in there. I was about to run out to see what was going on, but it turned out to be like this. My grandfather spoke up to explain. Hong slept soundly in his arms. Seeing his chest still heaving, I felt somewhat reassured. After a while, Hong woke up, rubbed his eyes, and we breathed a sigh of relief. I sat down, held his little hand, and asked, "Why are you sleeping in the middle of the house?" Trung is back. He looked around blankly and seemed not to understand what I said. I wasn't sleeping, I was playing. Then I heard Mr. Trong calling me and saying it was time to go home. Suddenly I saw my house at night. Oh, I saw Uncle Ba. He smiled at me too. Every time he said that, I got goosebumps, especially the last sentence. It seemed like there were a lot of things I didn't know. How could I see him? He said yes, I saw him. He also said that our family should go thank him, Olin. She was the one who helped him the other day. My grandfather and I turned pale. Every word the prince said seemed to be engraved in my mind. It turned out that the prince was not different from others, but that he could really see things that others could not see. But what about Mao then? So where are your uncle and aunt now? My grandfather asked with red eyes and choked up. Uncle is gone, Gramp. He said he would wait for everyone to pick him up and take him home. Dear listeners, you have just finished listening to the first episode of Tran Vong Village, author Darkness Prevails. Goodbye. See you again in episode 2 of the series. Wish you a peaceful day. Dear listeners, you can listen to stories about homeland and family affection on the YouTube channel Darkness Prevails.